Okay, hi and welcome once again everyone. This video is going to be part 3 of my video series on scoring bridge. I put this video up 5 years ago called Contract Bridge Scoring Part 1, Rubber Bridge. I then followed it with another video pretty much at the same time about match pointed pairs, which we also sometimes call a duplicate bridge. I'm now going to make another video today about how to score in teams bridge. And so what is Teams Bridge? Well, I typed in this. What is Contract Bridge IMP scoring to Google? And it came back and said IMPs is the normal method of scoring in team events or any event where only 2 tables play each board. Well, that's not quite right. Where there's a head-to-head matchup of one team of 4 players versus another team of 4 players. When playing IMPs, your score on a contract is compared to the score of the other team who played the same hands. You are then rewarded or penalized a certain number of imps based on the difference. So let's have a look how this works. So my idea here is that this is directed to players who have been used to playing duplicate or match pointed pairs, that is for percentages in a bridge club, and now want to move to the next level of bridge, which is playing teams bridge, which is, according to all the experts, a much fairer method of scoring than percentages scoring. And all really important bridge tournaments are scored in this way. So how does it work? Well, we enter something like a Sunday Congress where we are going to play bridge all day. There are Sunday Congresses here in Sydney, Australia, most Sundays when we're not in lockdown due to viruses, of course. And these are often played as teams events. So you must form a team of 4, and let's have a look at the teams that are entered to this particular Congress. And this Congress, I'll just assume, is going to run the way most Sunday Congresses run in Australia, which is 54 boards played during the day. You start usually at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, finish around 5 o'clock or so with a break for lunch. Normally 24 or 27 boards before lunch and 24 or 27 boards after lunch. I'm going to assume 27 boards. So when we turn up, we find that these are the teams that are entered. The team that I'm in is called the black team. Each team name is just generated from one of the players' surnames in the team. That's the usual standard. Our team is the black team. We happen to be team number 2. You normally don't worry about that. Maybe it's been seeded by the director, maybe not, maybe it's just random. And normally in round 1, the team number 1 will play team number 2, team number 3 will play team number 4, and so forth. So you can see here where the black team, we're playing team 1, the vice team, and of course the vice team is playing us, and so forth. 3 plays 4, 5 plays 6. So you don't have to worry about any of this, but it's just when you're actually playing, you just play bridge and you score in the normal way using your electronic devices, I'm assuming. However, mostly in teams matches, you will get a score sheet because most people like to write down the scores as they go. So I'm going to pretend this is our paper score sheet. I'm going to write down the scores as they go, and we're going to see how this match unfolds and how it's scored. So on the first hand, the contract was 2 hearts, and the declarer was north, and the lead card was something, and 8 tricks resulted, and the score was therefore 110. So as you know from playing duplicate bridge, 2 hearts making is 110. That's 2 times 60 plus 50 for the part score. Scoring is exactly the same on each hand in duplicate bridge to IMPs bridge, but the difference comes in the way the comparisons are made between different tables. Oh, by the way, I should have also mentioned that for the first match, my team consists of myself. My name is Alex Black for the purposes of this exercise. I'm playing with a partner called Brown, and our teammates are someone called Green and White. Now we've been drawn in the first match to play against the vice team. It looks like they've all got German surnames, just to make it obvious. So at table 2, we've got Vice sitting north, Vice sitting north, Merkel sitting south, and sitting east for their team is Grunder and Schmidt. So what happens before the match is that their east-west pair from table 2 will come and sit at our table and be our opponents, and our east-west pair will go to their table and be their opponents. So the cards I get as black at my sitting north at table 1 will be exactly the same cards that Vice will get when they come to play the same board. Of course, we will play the same boards. I've set up here for a score sheet for 16 boards, but we're going to assume it's a 9-board match. And your director will give you a score sheet that will allow you to score 6 rounds of 9, for instance, if you're playing 54 boards on a Sunday. All right, so that's how it works. So we're playing against Grunda and Schmidt, and our mates Green and White have gone to the other table, and they're up against the German North-South pair. On the second board, the contract was 3-0 trumps by South. Some lead was made, and my partner was successful in making 9 tricks there, so we scored 600 for making a vulnerable game. Again, the same score as you'd have in duplicate. On the next hand, we had 3 spades as the contract, and that was played by East, and the Heart King was the lead, and they made 10 tricks there. So we conceded 170 points, so our score is minus 170. On the next board, we bid to 3 diamonds, which I expected to make, but they went on to 3 hearts. And I was a little annoyed about that because I really wanted to play 3 diamonds, so I decided to double that in the hope of defeating them. But unfortunately, they were able to make 9 tricks, so we scored minus 730. 3 hearts making is minus 730 for us because it's 3 hearts, 3 times 30 is 90, doubled is 180, because they have scored more than 100 points on one hand, they get the game bonus. Therefore, that gives them another 500 points when vulnerable. That takes them up to 680, and they get 50 for the insult, for being insulted by a double, which they were able to make. So their total score is 730 points. So that obviously wasn't so great. 4 spades by West, and we're going to see the effect of all the scoring on the tactics. I'm going to make some comment on that when we score up with our teammates. Here our opponents bid and made 4 spades. They scored 420 points for that. That was on board 5. On board 6, we again bid to 3-no trumps. Oops. We again bid to 3-no trumps on board 6. 5 of clubs was led, and my partner was successful in making 10 tricks. So that's good. And on the next board, board 7, our opponents bid to 6 clubs. Heart Queen was led, and they made that, and a vulnerable small slam is worth 1370. For making 6 clubs making 12 tricks, you score 1370. On the next board, I was allowed to make 2 spades, which was nice. Bid 2 spades, made 8 tricks. And on the final board, we bid all the way to 7 no trumps. Again, I was the declarer, got the 8 of spades lead. Unfortunately, I went 1 off in that contract. We just overstretched slightly. It wasn't quite there. Close run thing, but not quite. So at this point, we finished the boards, the 9 boards that the director has set out for us. Now we wait for our teammates to finish at the other table. Eventually they finish and they come back to our table and sit down in the east-west seats at our table, and we say goodbye to Grunda and Schmidt. They go back to their table, and now it's time to score up. So when it comes to scoring up, you're only really interested in the number of points your teammates have scored or conceded at the other table. I mean, you can discuss how they did that if you want to have a bit of a post-mortem. For scoring up purposes, the only thing that matters is how many points they scored. So typically, most people do score up while they're waiting for the director to get all the results in, because this is where you see whether you won or lost the match. And so on the first board, our teammates reported that they scored minus 90, because at their table, 1 no trump was the contract and it made 7 tricks. So there you can see what is happening here is we are getting a net score coming in. I'll explain what imps in and imps out mean in a minute. On the next board, my partner made 3 no trumps, but at the other table, our teammates were successful in defeating a 3 no trump contract. So they scored plus 100. So there we have a net of 700, because we got 600 and our opponents got 100. That's a net of 700 points to our team on that board. On the next board, our opponents bid to 3 spades and made made 10 tricks, but our teammates bid to 4 spades and made 10 tricks. So here you can see we won 450 points on this board. So this shows the importance of bidding your games. Here, to score 170 is disappointing when playing teams bridge, because you could have had this much bigger score of 620 if you had bid to 4 spades. So that shows the importance of making sure you bid your games. Don't bid a part score and then make a game, because you have given up the possibility of making a 600 score if you're vulnerable, or a 400 and something score if you're not vulnerable. Also note here the importance of actually making your contract, especially when it's a game contract. Going off here is very costly when at the other table the contract was made. So there's a couple of tips. Now here we had this situation where I doubled 3 hearts because I felt we could get it 1 off maybe, and that would give us 200 points. But in fact they made it. Now, if you were playing duplicate, this wouldn't be so bad. This would just be a bad board. But here, I've given away a massive number of points on a board that is really just a part score board. We bid to 3 diamonds, they bid to 3 hearts, the points were about 20-20. We had a good diamond suit, they had a good heart suit. In pairs, it's maybe quite worth doubling this, because if I had been successful in scoring plus 200, that would be a fantastic score in pairs scoring, because on a part score board it's not possible to score 200 normally. Therefore, by scoring 200, if I was able to defeat 3 hearts, that would be a really good thing to do. So there I'm prepared to take the risk of sometimes letting them make doubled, because if they'd scored 140 undoubled, they probably would have got a good result playing pairs. But here it's really important not to double when you're playing Imps Bridge unless you're pretty confident of 2 off. What do you get for getting them off doubled? Well, you get 200 instead of 100. It's not that much when you're playing for total points. But what is a lot is that when things go bad and they are making their double contract, especially if it was a part score, it's really costly. Because what happened at the other table is our opponents did score a plus score, but they only scored 140. They also bid to 3 hearts, but they weren't doubled. So there you can see that we've given away 590 points on that board simply because I doubled their contract and they made it. So a good tip in Teams Bridge is don't double unless you're pretty confident of 2 off, and be extremely wary of doubling your opponents into game. So here I've doubled them into game. They were in 3 hearts. That's not a game contract, but 3 hearts doubled is a game contract. Okay, on the next board, our opponents also, our teammates I should say, at the other table also bid to 4 spades. However, they were doubled and they made it. So here again, even a doubled game contract is not so good at Teams Bridge. Again, they've given away 170 points there by doubling, and my teammates made their 10 tricks, but they scored 590 instead of 420 because they were doubled. Okay, so now let's look at board 6. At board 6 at the other table, the north-south pair, we bid to 3 no trumps, but the north-south pair at the other table actually bid to 4 hearts, and they did make it. Now, in duplicate bridge, playing for percentages, this would be a really bad score, 420, because they would lose to us. We had scored 430, because in duplicate bridge, the scores are ranked. So for instance, if you scored 420 and the whole rest of the field was scoring 10 tricks in 3 no trumps for 430, it would be a really bad result. But here you can see that where we're playing for total points, the difference between 420 and 430 is really negligible. It's only 10 points difference. And we'll see in a moment why it doesn't actually make any difference at all, 10 points difference. So here, there's just a 10-point difference. We won that board by 10 points. Now on the next board, our opponents bid and made 6 clubs. Our teammates didn't actually bid that contract. They bid to 3 no trumps, which they did make. But as you can see, we've lost a lot of points on that board because this shows the importance of bidding slams at Teams Bridge. It's really important at Teams Bridge to bid your games, bid your slams, especially good slams, bid good slams, you win a bucket of points. There you can see they won that board by 740 points. Here in a duplicate bridge, it might not be so bad for our teammates who have only bid a game there because they might pick that up on the next board by making an extra over trick. But here it's very hard to pick up 740 points. They've given away 740 points by not bid that they could have had by not bidding to slam. So in teams bridge, it's really important to bid to slam. It's not so important in teams bridge to win the minor skirmishes, as we saw here, 2 hearts at one table, 1 no trump at the other table. Well, it's only 20 points difference, it's not much. However, you do have to fight for your part scores a little bit here, because here I was allowed to make 2 spades, and I scored 110. However, at the other table, our teammates didn't sell out to 2 spades. They went on to 3 clubs, and they were actually successful in that contract of 3 clubs. So we scored plus 110, but they also scored plus 110. So our team won that board by 220 points. So it is important still to fight for those for those part scores a little bit when you're playing teams bridge. So here we are coming into the last board, and we haven't talked about what these imps columns mean, but at the moment we're ahead 34 imps to 23. Now let's look at what happened on the last board. I went 1 no trump off. I went off 1 in 7 no trumps. At the other table they only bid to 6 no trumps, and they also only made 12 tricks. Therefore, our teammates conceded 990 points there because their opponents bid and made 6 no trumps. So now what does all this mean? This is our finished scorecard. So at this point, we have figured out what the net is just by doing some simple arithmetic. Now we have to worry about what are imps. Here we have the scale that's applied right around the world for converting the difference in points into imps. So if you win a board by 20 to 40 points, you score 1 imp. If you win it by 50 to 80 points, you score 2 imps. 90 to 120 points, you win 3 imps, and so on. If you win that board by, say, 650 points, you score 12 imps. If you win the board by 10 points, or there's no difference at all, well, then it's 0 imps. So I set up in this spreadsheet by putting over here another lookup sheet which showed for each amount of points difference the number of imps scored. Okay, I've done this over here. This is how these numbers came in. So here on the first board, we won by 20 points. Therefore, we scored 1 imp. Because if we go back over here, 20 points is 1 imp. So it's like a logarithmic scale. You can see if you lose a board by 500 points, it costs you 11 imps. But if you lose a board by 1,000 points, it costs you 14 imps, not 22 imps. So it's a logarithmic scale. The idea is to smooth out those differences a little bit. So if you did lose a board by 1,000 points, well, losing 22 imps, which is twice 11, would be terrible. So it just attempts to cater a little bit for wild swings on boards and just makes the penalty for losing a board by a huge margin a little less than it would be if you were playing for total points. So it's similar to playing for total points, but not exactly the same. Here you can see the importance of my partner pulling home this 3 no trump contract and going 1 off in a game contract at the other table. So it's really important to make your contract. 12 imps in for us because we won the board by 700 points. Here, our opponents at our table didn't bid this game, therefore we won 450 points, 10 imps. So at this point we've won 23 imps and they haven't won any. Here this was a bad decision to double 3 hearts, conceded 11 imps there for giving away a difference of 590. But we got 5 imps back on the next board because our opponents made a double contract, whereas we didn't double a contract at our table. So that was the penalty for doubling a contract that made, but it wasn't as bad as doubling a part score into game. That's a really terrible result at imps to be doubling part scores into game if they're making. Here we can see that 430 was scored at our table and 420 at the other, a difference of 10. It's actually 0 imps, so it makes no difference in a team's match, a 10-point difference. I mentioned the importance of bidding slams. Here you can see that for bidding this slam, the opponent's team scored 12 12 imps. Here we fought a little harder for this part score, and we were able to go plus at both tables, bringing in 220 points, which converted to 6 imps. So at that point, before that last board, we were ahead 34-23. But with the disaster on the last board, you can see we gave away 14 imps. So this shows the importance of being really sure that your Grand Slam is going to make it teams, because when you bid a Grand Slam and it goes one off, not only it's not the 50 points you give away that matters so much, it's the 990 points you could have had by just staying in 6 no trumps. For instance, if we were in 6 no trumps making 9 tricks, you can see that of course that would have then been a flat board, which by the way is also known as a wash. If we had this score here of 6 no trumps with 990, that would be a wash. 0-0. But we put it back to what actually happened, which is this. So we lost 14 imps on the last board, and so we scored 37 imps. We conceded, we scored 34 imps. We conceded 37 imps. Therefore, we lost the match by 3 imps. Now, to further confuse matters, imps are then converted to something called victory points. And this scale over here shows you how that works. Now, this is a terribly confusing array of numbers, but basically what this is a victory point scale put out by the World's Bridge Federation. We only need to worry about one column here. We played a 9-board match, and so what the World Bridge Federation says, well, if you play a 9-board match and the margin was 3 imps, you are scoring 11.2 victory points. And so what I will do is go over here and put in victory points 11.2. And there's our final score. We scored our opponent scored 11.2. The total number of victory points available in any match is 20. So we just saw that for winning by 3, a 9-board match, winning by 3, you score 11.2 victory points. And so because they scored 11.2, we scored 20 minus 11.2, we scored 8.8 victory points. So we lost that match, not too heavily. For instance, if we had lost the match by, let's say, 13 imps, what would have happened? Well, we would have lost by 13 imps. They would have got 14.46 victory points, and we would have been left with just 5.54. 20 minus 14.46. So we would have been left with 5.54. So that's how a imps match works. There we've lost by 3 imps. We scored 8.8 victory points, and therefore we can have a look at the standings after one round, which I've put on this other sheet here. So here I've prepared in advance an indication of what might have happened in various matches. As we saw in our match, we scored 8.8 victory points. The other team scored 11.2. And here are the results from all the other matches. So Kovacs had a big win over Szabo. They scored 17.93 and Szabo scored 2.07. Smith scored 17.22 and Renault scored 2.78. Note that these add up to 20. The positions have been ranked here with the team with the highest number of victory points down to the team with the lowest number of victory points. And the way most teams matches work is it's called a Swiss, which is that you play the team that's now nearest to you on the ladder, provided you haven't already played that team. So now you can see that Vice is in position 6 because ours was the tightest match. So the next match will be the 2 leaders. Smith will play Kovacs. Kovacs will play Smith. White will play Jones. Lyford will play Vice. Black, that's us. We're playing Molnar in the next match because they're the team nearest to us. Schwartz will play Dessessard. And the 2 teams that had the biggest losses will play each other. So the idea is if you win, you play other winners. If you lose, you play other losers. And you'll get a certain number of victory points for the next round and the next round and the next round. And whoever's leading after 6 rounds, if it's a congress here in Sydney, will be declared the winners. So after 6 rounds, you might expect the winner to maybe be averaging something like 14 victory points per match. So after 6 matches, if you are able to score, 6 times 14? Something like 84 victory points, you'd expect that will be the result after 6 matches. So this is how Teams Bridge works. There are various sites where you can look up on the internet what it all means. Over here, this site from World Bridge talks about the WBF victory point scales, and here is a rationale for why we have this complicated system of victory points. I've never read this document. And here is the victory point scale that I had downloaded to this PDF here. The director will provide you with this scale on your score sheet. If you're playing 9-board matches, he will just provide you with the column of data that you see here. Okay? Just the 9-board matches. So you're not going to see all this other stuff. You're just going to see, okay, you won by 1, it's 10.41. You won by 2 imps, it's 10.81. You won by 3 imps, as our opponents did, it's 11.2. So this is how Teams Bridge works. I think I've covered a little bit of tactics as well. Just one thing I should mention is that we used to have a much simpler victory point scale, much simpler, that you may still find in use in some places around the world. Instead of these victory points, which are to 2 decimal places, we lost that match by 3 imps, and therefore we got 8.8 victory points. This used to be the scale. It was a far simpler scale to understand. Here, in a 9-board match, we lost by 3 to 4 imps. The score would be 20 to 10. If we lost by 2 imps, it would be 19 to 11. So here, with a 30-point victory scale, we used to have this way of scoring. But for whatever reason, in 2013, the World Bridge Federation decided to go to this victory point scale, the one with all the decimal points. There's a rationale here. Okay, it was felt the other one wasn't so great. So that's really the history of. So let's just go back to our ladder from our Congress. So this is a draw for the next round. The director will just put that up, so we'll just look who we're playing in the next round. In World Championships, this is exactly how it works. There's usually 24 teams, and it's a round robin. Every team plays every other team. That's 23 rounds. And at the end, the top 8 will go into a knockout playoff. So that's how, for example, World Championships and really, really big bridge events work. The top 8 will go into a quarterfinal, semi-final situation, knockout. Normally, let's say the teams were finished like this, then the team that came first would have their choice of who they wish to play in the quarterfinal. And normally you'd choose the team that came 8th. Or perhaps you might choose a team that you defeated heavily in the round robin. Maybe here, let's say this was a knockout, a world championship or something like that, and Kovacs were leading after the full round robin. They might decide not to play Molnar. They might decide to play Black because they had a big win over Black. Maybe Molnar had been successful against Kovacs in their match. So that's normally how it works. The first team gets to decide their opponents, and the second team gets to decide which one they'd like from the remaining, and so on. So that there's some reward for coming first rather than second or third. That kind of thing. So this is, I think I've wrapped up everything I wanted to say. I hope it wasn't information overload, and thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you another time. Okay, bye.